Psalm 27. We, but I don't know how, I just apologize for how slow I go, but I don't know how to fix that. We talked about the first part of verse 12 last time. Do not let me fall into their hands, the hands of his enemies, for they accuse me of things I've never done. And I talked about our ultimate enemy. May feel like you've got other enemies, and maybe you do. On the other hand, you probably don't have enemies in the way that David did. So, but the devil's our ultimate enemy, and there are days when I would say, and right behind him, I'm my own enemy. Well, but listen, they accuse me of things I've never done. With every breath, they threaten me with violence. I've never had that happen. I've had bullies in my life from time to time, and they were quite threatening, but never with violence, not physical violence anyway. Early in my ministry life, this would have been almost 50 years ago now, there was a mom of a kid in my youth group who just did not want me to be there, and did all kinds of things to undermine my ministry, not so much authority as my the respect I might have been able to have, but I'm not sure. I think she did. Well, she did many things toward me, to me, against me. But she was a person who, her heart was so deeply troubled. And I look at it now and I think, I feel sorry for her. And this is awful, but I'm glad I don't have to deal with her and haven't for a very long time. But you know what? That memory is still in there. I don't know if you have ever had stuff like that happen, but I'm sure most of us have, especially if you've been assertive and taken initiative in ministry. There are times it's not possible that every breath would be a threat, but it feels like it. And this kind of over-the-top language, hyperbole that David uses, I can relate to that in my own little, and compared to David's situation, I'm thinking, my life's a picnic, but I still can relate to an enemy that it seems like with every breath they're breathing out threats. What do you do when that happens? My first instinct goes in one of two directions. Either I fight, well, actually three. The third, I don't do quite so much, but either I fight or I flee or I freeze. These are the three common reactions to threat. Your brain, God created us in such a marvelous and wonderful way that our brain, there's a specific part of our brain, it's called the amygdala. It receives signals. And it's looking for, it's like it's got a radar or sonar or both going all the time to pick up threat. And when it does, it will kick off a series of messaging to our glands and circulatory system and our body in order for us to respond to the threat. It's a gift of self-preservation. If we didn't have that, well, I don't think we would have made it past Adam and Eve as a race. If you don't discern or notice threat, you're going to be in trouble. Even as a city dweller, and sometimes especially as a city dweller in the 21st century, you got to be able to pick up threat. But when the threat is not real, but is treated as though it were real, and we act on that threat, and we continue that as a pattern, that creates a big series of problems that we're going to have to deal with that are actually potentially more dangerous to us than the perceived threat. Well, I can talk a lot about that, but that's enough. And here's the other thing about me talking about that. I can talk about it more to a greater degree than I actually understand it. Question remains, what do you do when you feel threatened? The two sides of that question. What do you normally do? Okay. And then what would be a wise thing to do when we feel threatened? Well, David doesn't just map it out for us, but verse 13, yet I am confident I will see the Lord's goodness while I am here in the land of the living. Here's what I get from that. It would be easy for this threat, and it's intense. It would be easy for that to be his entire field of vision, that it would take up the entire horizon of his life. But he says, no, I'm not going to do that. I have this confidence. I am confident I will see the Lord's goodness while I am here in the land of the living. There's a couple of things, or at least one big thing, that does not say. It doesn't say, I'm going to keep a stiff upper lip and I'm going to grind my way through this so that I'll see the goodness of God. He'll owe me that. No, that's not how it works. I don't think when he's talking about this confidence, he's not talking about a confidence that he will strike down his enemy or he will somehow subdue his enemy. I think he's saying, in spite of the threats of my enemy, I have a confidence. I'm confident I will see the Lord's goodness while I am here in the land of the living. And that idea of confidence is big. It is anyway in my life. It begs a question. What if you could, put it on a scale or if you could graph it or chart it, how much confidence do you have in God's goodness and in the fact that his goodness is coming to you? And David says, while I am here in the land of the living. Now, we got to realize this life that we live right now, locked in time in a corporal body, is not all there is. And I have to remind myself often that when things feel, well, when things get really difficult and complicated and discouraging, I got to read the last 2 chapters of the last book of the New Testament, where the Apostle John describes our home, because we're temporary residents here in the land of the living. And when we get home, it is all good all the time. There will be nothing. I can't emphasize that word strongly enough. Nothing bad or evil or harmful or hurtful in our real home. But David's not talking about then when he says that he'll see the Lord's goodness. He's saying, while I'm here in the land of the living. In other words, I don't know when, but I'm going to see it. While I'm here, as I am, in the situation I find myself. I want to have that kind of confidence. I want to be able to truly believe, and I don't mean have this wish upon a star kind of thing, that everything will work out good. No, I want to have a confidence that I will see the Lord's goodness. Does that mean everything's going to be resolved and he'll tie it up with a bow and present it to me and life will just be unicorns and rainbows and Skittles for breakfast? And no, that's not what it means. You know, sometimes the goodness of the Lord comes to us in the form of struggle. Oh, I hate this. And it's not the only way that his goodness comes to us. But part of his goodness is doing for us, permitting things to happen in our lives that will evoke growth and strength from us within our lives. It's his goodness that both permits the struggle and sustains our strength within the struggle. And it is his goodness that visits us with love, with acceptance, with security, with confidence. Sometimes we have to look for the goodness of God, because if we're not careful, all we'll see is the threat around us. I think one of the things that David is saying is, I look for God's goodness. I'm confident I will see the Lord's goodness. You're not going to see what you don't look for. So today, my challenge is, look for the goodness of God. And then one of the ways to do that is to look back and notice the goodness of God in your story. Remind yourself of the goodness of God in the times you've experienced it. If you want to take it to a very strong level, write it down in a journal or in your computer or on your phone, but write it down so that you can review it. There's threat. I'm not going to pretend it's not there. Yet, I am confident I will see the Lord's goodness while I am here in the land of the living. That can be the difference between my life being a fulfilling and purposeful experience or me just being a victim. Don't be a victim. You don't need to be. I'll see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie.